Karen's laugh was a hyena's cackle, sharp enough to make the gulls scatter. She stood in my boathouse doorway, her bulk blocking the sunset, acting like she owned the lake itself. I'd come down to Lakeview to check on my family's old boathouse, a rickety shack we'd owned for decades, only to find her Karen, the self-proclaimed queen of entitlement, sprawled inside like it was her personal Airbnb. She'd moved in, uninvited, with a folding chair, a mini fridge humming in the corner, and a pile of tacky throw pillows that screamed discount store clearance. The audacity wasn't just bold. It was a slap across the face of common decency. I'd heard about Karen before. She was a legend in Lakeview. Not the good kind. The kind who'd scream at baristas for getting her latte foam wrong. Who'd park across 3 spaces because her SUV deserved it. She'd rolled into town 6 months ago, renting a cabin nearby, and proceeded to make enemies faster than a skunk at a picnic. But this, squatting in my boathouse, my grandfather's pride, where he'd taught me to tie knots and fish for perch. This was war. "Excuse me," I said, standing on the dock, my boots sinking into the damp wood. "What the hell are you doing in my boathouse?" Karen barely looked up from her phone, her manicured nails tapping away. "Oh, honey," she drawled, her voice dripping with condescension. "This place was just sitting here. Empty. I'm using it. You should thank me for keeping the rats out." She smirked, her chins wobbling as she adjusted her oversized sunglasses. I blinked, dumbfounded. "Thank you. This is private property. Get out." She snorted, hauling herself up from the chair, which creaked in protest. "Private property. Please." I checked the town records. Nobody's been here in years. Finders keepers. Sweetheart. She waved a hand like she was dismissing a servant. "Now, run along. I'm redecorating." My blood boiled. The boathouse wasn't just a shack. It was memory as me dad's old fishing rods. The faded photos of us grinning with our catches. The smell of cedar and lake water. Karen didn't just trespass. She'd defiled something sacred. I could have called the sheriff. But Lakeview's a small town. Sheriff Dan was probably napping at the diner. And by the time he got here, Karen would have spun some sob story about being a victim of harassment. No. I needed something sharper. Something that had hit her where it hurt her pride. The next morning, I walked down to the dock with my neighbor, Tom, a grizzled fisherman who'd known my family forever. He'd heard about Karen's takeover and was spitting mad. "That woman's got the manners of a raccoon in a dumpster," he growled, chewing on his pipe. "What's the plan, kid?" I grinned, eyeing the boathouse's mooring lines. They were old but sturdy, tied to the dock with knots I could undo in my sleep. "We're not evicting her," I said. "We're relocating her." Tom's eyes lit up. "You're a devil, aren't you?" By noon, word had spread. A couple of locals, Maggie, a dock worker with a temper, and old man Jenkins, who ran the bait shop, showed up to watch. Karen was inside, oblivious, blasting some awful pop music while rearranging her tacky decor. I could see her silhouette through the window, fussing over a plastic flamingo she'd propped up like it was fine art. Maggie muttered something about tasteless trash, and Jenkins chuckled, leaning on his cane. The plan was simple but reckless. The boathouse wasn't just a shed. It was built on a pontoon base, designed to float if needed for repairs. My grandfather had always bragged it could drift a mile without sinking. I'd untie the lines, give it a gentle push, and let the lake's current do the rest. Karen would wake up adrift, far from shore, with no way back but to beg for help. And who'd rescue her? The Coast Guard, who'd be less than thrilled to deal with a squatter causing a scene. You sure about this? Tom asked, his hands already on the ropes. I nodded. She wants to live on the water. Let's give her the full experience. We worked fast. Maggie kept watch, pretending to fish off the dock while Jenkins distracted Karen with a fake complaint about her music. Ma'am, you're scaring the perch, he hollered, banging on the boathouse door. Karen stormed out, her face red, ready to lecture him on her rights. That's when Tom and I slipped the knots free. The boathouse groaned, shifting slightly as the current tugged it. I gave it a shove with a long pole, and it started to drift, slow but steady, away from the dock. Karen didn't notice at first. She was too busy yelling at Jenkins, her voice carrying over the water. You people are so small-minded. This is my space now. Jenkins just smirked, hobbling back to the dock. By the time Karen turned around, the boathouse was 10 feet from shore, picking up speed. What the she shrieked, stumbling to the doorway. Her eyes widened as she saw the gap between the boathouse and the dock. What did you do? You can't do this. I'll sue. Go ahead, I shouted back, standing on the dock with my arms crossed. Tell the judge how you stole my property first. The boathouse floated further, caught in the lake's lazy current. Karen's face went from red to purple, her hands flailing as she realized she was trapped. Help! Someone help me! She screamed. But the locals just watched, some snapping photos with their phones. Maggie was doubled over laughing, and even Jenkins was grinning like a kid on Christmas. I called the Coast Guard from my phone, keeping my voice calm. Yeah. Hi. There's a boathouse adrift on Lakeview. Some lady's inside. Says she lives there. Not sure how she got out there, but she's causing a hazard. The dispatcher sounded annoyed but promised to send a boat. By the time the Coast Guard arrived, the boathouse was a good 100 yards out, bobbing like a cork. Karen was hysterical, leaning out the window, waving her arms like a stranded castaway. The Coast Guard crew, two stern-faced guys in orange vests, weren't amused. They boarded the boathouse, and we could hear Karen's voice from the shore, spinning her usual nonsense. I'm the victim here. They sabotaged me. I have rights. The Coast Guard wasn't buying it. One of them, a guy named Officer Ruiz, came back to the dock to get my statement. She says she's been living there legally, he said, raising an eyebrow. That true? I pulled out the deed to the boathouse, tucked in my jacket. This is my family's property. She moved in without permission. I just helped her take a little trip. Ruiz snorted, shaking his head. Creative. We'll handle it from here. They towed the boathouse back to shore, but not before issuing Karen a citation for trespassing and creating a navigational hazard. She was escorted off in handcuffs, still yelling about her rights as the locals cheered. The Coast Guard hauled her mini fridge and flamingo out, dumping them on the dock like garbage. Maggie kicked the flamingo into the water, and nobody stopped her. Later that evening, I sat on the dock with Tom, watching the sunset. The boathouse was back in place. Empty now, just the way it should be. You think she'll learn? Tom asked, lighting his pipe. I laughed. Karen, not a chance. But maybe she'll think twice before stealing someone's home. The locals started calling it the Boathouse Drift, and it became Lakeview legend. Karen left town a week later, her reputation in tatters. Some said she tried to sue, but no lawyer would touch her case. The boathouse stayed quiet after that. Just the creak of wood and the lap of waves. The way my grandfather would have wanted it. There's a lesson here. One Karen learned the hard way. You can't just take what's not yours and expect the world to bow. Sometimes, the world pushes back, or in this case, sets you adrift. Respect isn't owed. It's earned. And when you spit in its face, don't be surprised when the tide carries you away. The end.